Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with college football predictions for week one of 2024. What a different year it's going to be with the 12 team playoff. We've got games happening this week Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I will be predicting all of the games involving a ranked team. And of course, a lot of these games are going to be blowouts because they will be involving FCS versus FBS. A lot of these games will not have spreads until the day of the game, including this first one. This is a 7 o'clock Thursday start. It is NC State, the Wolfpack, sitting at number 24 overall in their initial 2024 ranking. They will be taking on Western Carolina. And of course, there is no spread for this game with an FCS team, a bad FCS team involved. I will be going with NC State. I think they are a little bit underrated at number 24. I guess we'll see. I have them winning this game 52-10. We do have an 8 o'clock little primetime matchup. How about Missouri returning their quarterback, returning their star receiver? They're at number 11, so just outside of the top 10. They had a great year last year. They've got a relatively easy SEC schedule this year. Could they make the playoff? They're taking on Murray State. I remember Murray State, they're a decent college basketball team, but obviously an FCS team, and this will be a very easy win for Missouri. I do think Murray State, kind of a random score, 52-8. Murray State gets a touchdown and a 2-point conversion late, but Missouri wins this game very easily. Another 8 o'clock game. It is going to be Lindenwood traveling to take on Kansas. I am very high on Kansas, even though they are playing at an MLS stadium for this game. And their next, I think, 3 games, the non-conference games, and then they'll move to Arrowhead because their current stadium is under renovations. Lindenwood, very random FCS team. Kansas, I think they've got the best offense in the Big 12. I have them winning the Big 12 and being the number 4 overall seed in the college football playoff. How about that? I do think they win this game and they drop a 60 burger, 62-7. A very easy victory for KU on a Thursday night there. And then another Thursday night game. It's another FCS team. How about this? Southern Utah taking on Utah. This is a huge in-state rivalry. Utah, they've got a ton of hype, ranked number 12 overall to start off the year. A lot of people think Utah, with Cam Rising returning after his injury last year, they could make the playoff. They've always got a good defense in the Big 12 now. This is a 9 o'clock Eastern start time, and I do think Utah wins this game 41-3. They could easily shut out Southern Utah, though. So maybe they win that game 41-0. Moving on to the Friday game, it is Temple traveling to Oklahoma. Oklahoma, a lot of hype according to the analytical models. They are ranked number 16 in their initial ranking. You can see minus 43. Temple is one of the worst teams in all of FBS. OU as a massive favorite and a 99% chance to win according to ESPN FPI. And I do think they win this game 50-7. Jackson Arnold, the former 5-star QB, got his feet wet last year. Brett Venables, maybe an improved defense and a lot tougher of a schedule. Oklahoma is a top 10 team according to the analytics. Can they play like it? I guess we will see. Let's move on to the Saturday games and the noon window. This is a very surprising start time to me. I thought this game would be on at 3:30. This is the neutral site. Georgia, the number 1 overall team with Carson Beck taking on Clemson with Cade Klubnik. Clemson, I do think they are underrated. They have a top 5 overall roster in terms of talent. They've got, I think, a top 3 defense in terms of talent. They are sitting 13.5-point underdogs. This line was initially, I think, 14.5, so it's been bet down. This game will be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, so it's basically a de facto Georgia home game. These neutral site games in week 1 we always hate. Georgia, though, minus 13.5. I do think they cover. I could see Georgia winning this game 34-13, 34-10. Something along those lines, just because Clemson's offense and how much they've struggled over the past 4 or 5 years, or excuse me, like 3 or 4 years. I think Georgia's defense, they're so talented with Carson Beck at QB. This could be a lower scoring first half, maybe a boring first half where it's 10-3, but I think Georgia pulls away in this game and relatively easily covers a spread. Even though I do like Clemson this year, this is just a really, really bad matchup for them in week 1 there. Another noon game, another fun one here. This is Penn State traveling to West Virginia. Penn State sitting minus 8.5. So some interesting notes about this game. This game reminds me a lot of Penn State's week 1 game like 3 years ago when they went on the road in West Lafayette and almost lost to Purdue. It's a raucous environment. They end up winning that game, but not covering the spread. They were originally minus 10 in that game. In this game, it gets bet down to minus 8.5. 78% chance to win. They've got an initial ranking at number 8. West Virginia does have more hype this year than they've had in years past. Morgantown is going to be crazy. This is the big noon game, and I do think it is very close. And I do think West Virginia covers the 8.5 point spread, even after it's already gotten bet down. Penn State wins this game 27-24. I will, however, caution people. I've seen a lot of models that love Penn State to win this game by like 15 points. This is kind of the deviation where this is week one. We have to understand you're a team like Penn State going on the road in a hostile environment. You're going to be overwhelmed in the first half. Let's be honest. I think this is not a great matchup for them. West Virginia will play well. They'll keep it close. Maybe they'll go ahead. Penn State ends up winning. I do believe in Penn State this year. I think they make the playoff because they always have a really good defense. And this year, they've got like a top 5 defense in terms of the analytics. I think they win this game, but it is very close. Should be a fun matchup. Really, kind of not a normal thing we're used to with Penn State traveling to West Virginia there. Another noon game, it is Iowa sitting at number 25. Iowa has learned from their FCS mistakes. I remember a few years ago, Iowa facing South Dakota State. That was a tough game in week one. A few years before that, they faced North Dakota State. Now they're facing Illinois State, the Redbirds. That's a lot easier of a matchup. Iowa, maybe a revamped offense. There's some hype around them. They've got an easy schedule in the Big Ten. Some people are saying they're a dark horse, possibly playoff team if they go 10-2. They're at number 25, so they're barely ranked, and I do think they win this game. They could pitch a shutout against Illinois State, but I've got it at 37-7. That's a noon start there. How about this game, 12:45? So this is something the SEC is doing where they're having one game each week start at 12:45, and it is going to be Tennessee taking on Chattanooga, the FCS team. Tennessee, I'm very high on them. I think they are underrated relative to some of the other SEC teams. They've kind of been forgotten about. They've got a young superstar QB who played well in the bowl game last year, Nico Lamaliva. They're at number 15 right now. I think this team could make the playoff. They've got a very explosive offense every year, and I think they win this game, dropping a 50-burger 55-14 over Chattanooga. Moving on to a random 2 o'clock game. This is just not a fun matchup for Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State at number 17, returning Ollie Gordon. They've got a lot of talent back on that roster. 9.5-point favorites at home against South Dakota State. And again, South Dakota State, you could argue they are the best FCS team right now. You can see Oklahoma State with an 89% chance to win, but the FPI has been off on the FCS versus FBS matchups because they had New Mexico with was a 69% chance to win, but Montana State was 11-point favorites. I think this game's going to be very close. These week one games where a really good FCS team goes on the road, they always play well. I've got it at 31-28. This is not a fun matchup for Oklahoma State. There is some hype surrounding them. People think they could win the Big 12, but then again, there's like 7 teams that could win the Big 12. I will take them to win this game, but I think South Dakota State does cover this spread, and it is a very close game. Moving on to the 3:30 games, believe it or not, Ohio State and Akron. This is the CBS 3:30 window game. I don't know how, but it is. Ohio State sitting minus 50.5 with a 99% chance to win. They got 15 first place votes in the first AP poll. They are ranked second overall. You could argue they have the most talented roster in football, certainly the most talented defense. We will see how well they do. Will Howard, the quarterback from Kansas State, people seem to be lukewarm on him, but we know Akron is one of the worst teams in all of FBS basically every year, and I do think Ohio State wins this game and drops a 60-burger. A lot of people always ask me with games like this where the spread's 50.5, I just would stay away from them because you've got an over-under of 58. I mean, Ohio State could win this game 56-0, and the under hits, so it's just hard. And you're basically just betting on second and third stringers because we know Ohio State's going to be up like 42-0 at halftime. So when it comes to like 50.5, I do have Ohio State covering the spread though, winning this game by 59 points, 66-7 overall. Another 3:30 game. It is Colorado State traveling to Texas. So Texas coming off their playoff appearance last year, losing in the semifinal. They return Quinn Ewers. They did get a lot of talent via the portal. They filled up some roster holes. They're at number 4. They do have Quinn Ewers back. 32.5-point favorites against Colorado State. I think Colorado State's underrated. Colorado State's going to be a decent team this year in the Mountain West, and I do think Colorado State covers this spread. Normally, Texas, when you've got like a 32.5-point spread, It's just not something Texas will cover very often. And also, let's remember this game happening at 2:30 Central Time in late August in the dead heat. You're going to be dealing with some pretty brutal, maybe 110 degrees on the turf, 98 degrees heat index overall, really, really bad. I think Texas just wants to get out of here with a win. They don't really care about covering the spread. They win this game 38-17 in that one. We've got a huge game here. How about this? Miami traveling to Florida, an in-state rivalry. Miami initially ranked number 19 overall. They've got a lot of hype surrounding them. Traveling to Gainesville, Florida, the toughest schedule by far in college football this year. Miami sitting -2.5 in this game, but Florida, according to ESPN FPI, with a 58% chance to win. So the FBI likes Florida plus the 2.5 as value, but I do think Miami wins this game as a higher scoring, fun matchup. 34-27. Cam Ward, maybe a little bit of a Heisman moment early. We know Miami's got all this hype. People are predicting them to win the ACC, be the number 3 overall seed in the playoff, and get that first round bye because of their roster talent and because of the transfer portal QB they got. I think they win this game against Florida. It's a huge game for both of these teams. It's going to be hot. It's going to be sweaty, but give me Miami to win this game 34-27. Moving on to the 7 o'clock window. How about this? The first game in the post Nick Saban era. Alabama, with their initial ranking of number 5 overall, the returning QB Jalen Milroe taking on Western Kentucky. Bama sitting -31. It always feels like Bama covers in these week 1 games where they're massive favorites. Western Kentucky got blown out last year by Ohio State. And I think something similar happens in this game, considering it feels like Alabama has something to prove. Post Nick Saban, they win this game 55-17. They easily cover the 31-point spread there. We also do have Furman. I remember Furman, the college basketball team. They were ranked at one point like 4 or 5 years ago. They will be traveling to Ole Miss. Ole Miss, of course, with a lot of talent. Lane Kiffin, Jackson Dart getting some Heisman hype. They did lose Quinshon Judkins, but they do have a lot of talent now on defense. They got 2 key pass rushers, and this is an FCS versus FBS. There is no line in this game, of course, and I will have Ole Miss dropping a 60 burger in prime time, 62-3 in that one. Another 7 o'clock game. It's another FCS versus FBS. It is Kansas State breaking in their young QB, Avery Johnson, replacing Will Howard. Although people will say Will Howard was a backup. But yeah, Kansas State at number 18. They're getting some hype. They'll be taking on UT Martin. Wow, yes, UT Martin. Sitting, obviously, as massive underdogs in this game. There is no spread. I've got it at 49-6 with K-State getting a win in week 1 there. How about this one? This game's on the Big Ten Network. It is Oregon, the number 3 overall team in college football, initially taking on Idaho, the FCS school. Oregon with a 99% chance to win. Ton of hype for Oregon. A lot of people think they're going to win the national title. They've got Dylan Gabriel. This is like his 5th, 6th year in college football. A ton of experience there. They paid a lot for him in the transfer portal. It was coming down to Oregon, Ohio State. He goes to Oregon, and they should win this game very easily. I've got them dropping a 70 burger. This game will be a 4:30 local time start, so a nice late afternoon game and a very, very easy win we would expect for Oregon in that one. This is a huge 7:30 primetime game, a seismic Notre Dame traveling on the road to College Station. That's a tough environment. Texas A&M ranked 20th, Notre Dame initially ranked number 7 overall. Notre Dame, if they go 10-2, they very likely will make the college football playoff. They have a relatively easy schedule, but they need to win this game. They're sitting 3-point underdogs. This line has moved pretty significantly. Notre Dame was originally the favorites. Now A&M sitting -3 because of that home field advantage. Notre Dame is given a 59% chance to win via ESPN FPI, so possibly some good value in Notre Dame plus the 3. And I do like Notre Dame to win a hard-nosed defensive type week 1 game, 26-17, although there is a lot of unknown surrounding Riley Leonard, the transfer QB from Duke. We know he's this decent dual threat QB, but he barely played last year. He was injured throughout much of it. I do think Notre Dame, this is the type of game they win. I remember 5 or 6 years ago, Notre Dame going on the road at FSU, winning a good game there. They'll beat a team like Texas A&M, but then they'll choke to a team like Ohio State. So I think they go on the road. This is a big week 1 game for both of these teams. A&M, they are still a really talented roster, even with all the transfer portal happenings. and they did move on from Jimbo Fisher. They bought him out. I think Notre Dame, though, wins this game in week one. It might be 26 to 24. It might be 20 to 17. I think a lower scoring win where they eke it out and they get it done. Maybe a late touchdown to win 26 to 17, something like that. Another 7:30 game. How about this? Michigan, the defending national champions, sitting at number 9 overall in the initial rankings. They've got a quarterback problem. Everyone thought they would get a transfer QB. It didn't happen. They are sitting minus 21.5 in this one, 89% chance to win. Fresno State, they are a solid team out of the Mountain West. I believe right now they're the number 3 ranked team in terms of analytics out of the Mountain West. And I do think Fresno State covers this spread. Michigan dealing with those early season quarterback problems, breaking in new QBs, maybe playing multiple QBs in the first half. They win this game 30 to 13, but Fresno State is going to cover that 21.5 point spread in that one. And then we've got the late game, the 10:30 game. It is New Mexico. Shout out to New Mexico. They played really well in week 0. They were 11-point underdogs against Montana State. They did choke the game and lose it, but they still played well. They'll be traveling on the road to take on Arizona. Arizona, kind of a weird situation. Their initial ranking is number 21 overall. They lost their head coach, but they still have basically all of their young talent. So I feel like people really don't know what to make of Arizona. They're sitting minus 30.5 in this one. Basically, nobody's going to be watching this game. It's happening at 10:30 on the East Coast. I do have Arizona winning this very easily, dropping a 50 burger, throttling New Mexico 56 to 14. Moving on to a Sunday game. So we do have one Sunday game and one Monday game just because there's no NFL this week. They're in between the preseason and the NFL season, so college football can do this. And this is a big matchup between two similar teams. It is USC and LSU. Both of these teams normally have really good offenses. USC initially ranked number 23. They are trying to improve their defense. And then LSU at number 12. They are losing a bunch on offense, and they are also trying to improve a defense that does have a lot of talent in terms of recruiting. LSU is sitting -4 in this game. They were originally -6.5, so the line's been bet down. And I do think LSU ends up winning this game 42 to 35. Higher scoring game, similar teams, normally good on offense, bad on defense. Huge game for both of these teams, though, really. And I think LSU -4, they get the job done and they do cover the spread. Although I'm not extremely confident of it, I do think LSU is they're a better program at this point. I do think USC, they're at risk of possibly losing Lincoln Riley after this year. We will see in terms of that. And then the Monday night game. Yes, there is a Monday night game. Why does the Monday night game always suck? It seems like it is FSU taking on Boston College. Now, I am filming this right before the updated rankings. So I gave a projection. I said maybe FSU's ranked number 18. They were ranked number 10, but then, of course, they lost to Georgia Tech. This is a 7:30 game. FSU is sitting -17. I believe they were originally -21. So losing to Georgia Tech, they lose 4 points. But let's not overreact. I know DJU was really bad in Ireland, but he's back in Tallahassee. And I think they win this game. They cover the spread against a bad Boston College team, 38 to 14. 81% chance to win there. They get back on track and they improve to 1-1. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.